Today, we'll be talking about user experience, user interfaces, and everything that comes with that topic in Web3.
What we want to do with Braille is like open the Web3 world to the people that yet don't have access to it because they are either not curious enough, they are not savvy enough. That's really why we chose this name. Is like, how do we make Web3 accessible? Like the same as Braille made reading accessible for the blind people.
It's like being blind people being Web2 people, not knowing that Web3 is existing. So how can you give them access to Web3?
Right. Yeah. All right, thank you for tuning into another episode of the TEACHMEDEFI podcast. Today, we'll be talking about user experience, user interfaces, and everything that comes with that topic in Web3. And for that, we got Ben and Alex on the show from the project Braille. Hey, guys, thank you for being here.
Hey,
sorry. Thank you.
Good to have you guys. You guys are kind of like specialized in that area for user experience, and you've launched a bounty on Polkadot, so you're kind of trying to especially drive a user experience forward on Polkadot. So before we dive into like the specifics of what you're trying to do there, and to kind of catch everyone on common ground that's watching and listening, what is user experience and what is UX and UI? How are they different and how are they important when it comes to like applications, digital applications on the web, and then perhaps also specifically for applications in the Web3 space?
So what is the user experience, user interface? Like the two, we usually like to talk about them like bundle because it's part of a full experience that we share to the user. But specifically, an interface is what you see. Like, for example, when you have a colon and you have a button, that's what we typically call an interface. And then an experience is rather when you click on this button, what will happen after. And so to give you a more vibrant example, like the social network for Facebook, the interface of Facebook is you have a column on the left, a middle column that is your feed and activity, and then a middle column on the right that is, I don't know, friends to add or something like that. That's what we call the user interface. So that's what you see, right? And then the user experience of Facebook is totally different. It's like what will happen when you click on a picture or when you click on this little thumb icon. That's what we call an experience. So the two of them are very linked together. That's why we usually call it like UX UI. But yeah, there is a difference to do in the terminology. Yeah.
And why is it that so many people complain about the user experience in crypto? I think it's like a common topic you hear often, right? Everything sometimes is too clunky for beginners. Something that I sometimes notice is there's something I want to do, and I think it'll take like 10 minutes. I'm like, I'll quickly do that thing, in crypto, and then I end up spending 2 hours on it for some reason. So why is it that it's a challenging topic in Web3 and crypto?
For several reasons, I guess. We can give some. One of them is being the fact that Web3 is really for Web3 people right now. So only people that understand Web3 build things for Web3 right now. So it means that it's mostly engineers, and sometimes UX and UI are not in the center of the product. They really focus on the tech. So the tech is perfect, the security is perfect, but when it comes to actually, think about the user journey or, the user interface itself, let's say it's not the top priority. So you're ending up with a really secure application, but not usable at all. So that's maybe one reason. And also is that we are at the very beginning of Web3, so there is no standards. What Alex said for Facebook, for example, what has been done for Facebook, it's also the standards for all social medias, right? Like you have 3 columns and you have, depending if it's on Twitter or X, or LinkedIn or whatever, it's every time it's the same, right? Three columns, and then you have the different things in the three columns. So right now in Web3, you don't have those. Like you're starting to have that for DeFi in general, also for social media, because we are taking back some, let's say, codes from Web2, but they have everything to build. So that's also something that needs to be done as an ecosystem, right? So people and projects are trying to innovate, but once we are having, some kind of standards that can be done, every project's trying to reinvent the wheel, making, a lot of friction on the user experience level. So yeah, that's two reasons. I could name, maybe Alex if you have more, but yeah.
Yeah, I will just add one other thing, and that's something very Web3 specific, right? With crypto, is that those ethos of like your key, and so you have to your passkey and your money, and so that creates as well a total different experience than what we see in Web2, where it's usually like centralized entity that take care of everything for you. In Web3, it's totally different. Is you take care of your own thing, and so ultimately it will create new experience. Like obviously we will be able to kind of like bring the Web3 experience like kind of like similar to what we know in Web2, but there will be like difference because of those ethos that are like that are critical, right? It's like in Web3 you own your own thing, while in Web2 you don't, and so you will be able to see it at some point. Not right now because it's not good. The Web3 experience is not good. But let's say in 5 years, when we have streamlined the process of putting the user back into the product cycle and like user-centric product, there will be a difference between Web2, what you can use on Facebook, and then what you can use on the Facebook of Web3. And maybe we should stop talking about Facebook as an example.
No, yeah, it's not a good one.
Maybe X is the best example, right? But yeah, like Farcaster on X, like that's very two different products, even though they are kind of like doing the same. You can see your experience on Farcaster is a bit different than what is on X, even though they are pretty similar.
Yeah.
And if I can just add something there, is that what is really important for UX UI in general and for applications in general is that the user needs to, like, the user don't care about the tech itself, right? They just want to use, the product. And we are at some point here in Web3 where you need to understand what is blockchain, what is Web3, what is the application, what is DeFi to be able actually to use the product. And I think when you're going to start, seeing applications that there's not saying we are using blockchain technology, we are using this technology, but just this is what we propose and what we're trying to achieve. User will adopt this product more because they won't care about, okay, but how does it work? Like if I push this button, what's happening on the blockchain, whatever. So it's also, let's say, a next step, as Alex was saying, with Web3 coming,
You touched on that point with the private keys. I'm curious about that. Like, does security, maybe that's the question I'm trying to ask, does more security come with worse UX? As in, is there a trade-off? Like, how do you bridge that divide to make sure like that the actions we carry out in Web3 they stick to that principle of security and decentralization, but don't come with worse UX? Because I think you referred to a book in one of your forum posts with the title of about user experiences and design, and I think it had the title of "Don't Make Me Think." So I think that means like don't make the user think, like don't assume they have to do all the work. But like you said, with the private keys and all that, you automatically assume more responsibility of the user for the user. So yeah, just what do you think about that?
That's a good question on the like the custody of your money, right? And that's a problem that we have in Web3 is like, how do you make people accountable, but at the same time provide them the best user experience? And that you got to do compromise, right? You can't just let people go through wallet extension and like assume that they will secure their passkey the same way as they will download the Revolut app and on their own account. we need to do to find the in between, the balance in between the two. And so I will say that at the end, like the industry will need to move forward, like to move to those Web2 people, at the same time as bringing the Web3 ethos and finding the best of both worlds, because we can't just be like, that's your passkey, that's your money, and just deal with it. That's how that's your only experience that you can have with Web3. No, we will need to have some workaround. And actually, just right now, if you use Binance, it's kind of like a Web 2.5 experience, right? It's because they own your key, they own your money, but at the same time, you have this ability to have one foot in Web3.
Right. Ben, any thoughts from your end?
No, yeah. Regarding just the passkey and everything, is that also we have to take into account the fact that Web2 people in general tends to lose, passwords and everything, right? So that's still something that is happening in the world, like in general. So that's a burden that is already existing in Web2. So imagine when you come to Web3 with all these words and all this OX, like people need to, if we can at least remove that from their experience, so it's like smoother for them. It's also a big step ahead for us.
Right.
So because still, again, they're struggling a lot with this password. So imagine with all these words and so on. So that's things that needs to be thought about, and how you can move forward. And the Coinbase example that Alex gave is a good one.
Right. So I guess providing more optionality is a net positive, right? So if someone wants to do self-custody, they can. If they want a more simple experience, like you said, that would be also helpful. And looking forward to you, Alex, showing us some stuff in that regard later. You mentioned the smart wallet by Coinbase, and I haven't looked into that too deeply, so I'm curious to check that out later.
Yeah.
But can you guys tell me a bit about your background actually as well, and how Braille came up, and also perhaps the story behind the name, because I think it's an interesting name, and there's also it feels to me there's also some reference to Polkadot in there, and language, I suppose. So can you tell me about that?
So, well, my background is a mix of project management, product management, and as well marketing, digital marketing. And so I started crypto in 2017, mostly just because I was interested in like new tech, and I was hearing about a new token like Ethereum on top of Bitcoin. That was my understanding at that time, and I was like, okay, they are starting to really build tools on top of like the blockchain. And well, obviously there was this long bear market, and then it's only in 2020 that I started again, like being interested in crypto and DeFi summer. And in 2021, I've started a project, an NFT project, where I was like the CPO, and so I've helped build a platform for music copyright NFT. So essentially, you were as an artist, you were selling your music copyrights to other people. And
That's cool.
there was a second bear market, so this platform really ended up pretty quickly because it was almost impossible to raise any money. But that put me into a professional sphere, right? Like instead of just being personally involved in crypto, I was like professionally involved. And so I've applied to some job, and I ended up in Parity. So for the people that don't know Parity is the company behind Polkadot. And I was a campaign manager there, so I was working on the marketing campaigns to promote Polkadot. And so I did that for almost a year until last October 2023, when Parity announced decentralization of their marketing department and other departments too. And so the decentralization, again, for the people that don't know, is Parity decided to remove those departments and leave the responsibilities of marketing, BD, and I think as well DevRel, but not sure on that, to the community. So they said like essentially we are not going to do the marketing of Polkadot anymore. We are not going to do the BD anymore. We will leave those responsibilities to the community. And so we are now in June, and like we can see the result already of this decentralization, and it's very interesting, right? It's like there are new entities that came up, and that are now taking over like the marketing, the BD. And it's not only Parity anymore that is deciding like for the sun and rain in Polkadot. It's multiple different entity, and yeah, that's how we started as well Braille. But I will first let Ben give a bit more of his background.
Yeah. So on my end, I used to be. I first studied as a Scrum Master. So I was joining a company working with big companies like Google and so on. It was mostly in retail. So we were selling software to them to help them, track what was being installed in store and so on. And I started as a Scrum Master, but it was kind of hard to keep up because the team was growing, and I was working really closely with the dev as well. So I switched more on the product side, let's say. So I've become a product manager, and I ended up being the product director at the end. And afterwards, I was a bit tired of retail and all this dusty world, I'd say. And I was aware about the technology of blockchain in general and crypto. I joined as an investor like 2019, something like that. But I was just, already aware more. I was more interested about the tech. I know a lot of people are saying that, but that was actually true.
In it for the tech.
Yeah. And I started to say, okay, let's see how I can join this world, right? So I helped a friend launch his project called Colony Lab on Avalanche. It was mainly decentralized hedge fund kind of good project. And after that, I was like, okay, I'm really interested in that, and that's really cool. And how can I, make the turn, right? Like, how can I go in that space more deeply? And that's where I was aware of the big ones, right? And Polkadot being one of them. I applied as a project manager to join Parity. So, as Alex said, I would say more they are behind Polkadot in terms of tech. They are really tech-centric. So Parity is really the tech-centric part of Polkadot. And I joined as a project manager, more in Marcoms, but I was also working a bit with engineers and so on. And I stayed there as 2.5 years, something like that. I evolved as a program manager, so more high level. How can I make sure that Marcoms is actually delivering? And after the decentralization, we were working really closely with Alex as well. So we were talking about UX, UI in Web3 and in Polkadot in particular a lot. And we were like, how can we make something? We are really passionate about product. We knew a lot of designers from our previous work and also within Parity. So we're like, okay, we know that we have something to do here. And that's where decentralization happened. So we went in Mallorca with Alex during a retreat, and we were talking about, okay, should we do that? I mean, there's something here to do, right? So we started to iterate because we first built Braille to apply to the Web3 Foundation grant. It was one of the first approach. And we were like, okay, how can we do something after, right? Like what would be, the approach to have a more ecosystem approach? And this is where as well a bounty idea came out. And we worked on this for almost 3 months, talking a lot of different people and so on. We went to Sub-Zero to present the initiative that we had in mind. How can we create a collective of UX in Polkadot? So several different milestones, like we had in mind several different milestones to be tackled. And we tried to tackle them one by one. And this is where we are right now with the UX Bounty proposal out. We said earlier, like we have the UX Bounty. No, right now we haven't. Like it's in decision. So we are trying to push that with a group of curators. And
Right.
And also, maybe we can make a difference as well on what is Braille and what is the UX Bounty, because I know a lot of people sometimes doesn't understand the two. So Braille is our agency with Alex. We are providing services in UX UI in general. So it can be UX UI audits. It can be, we can be the UX UI buddy for people, the third eye. So they can hire us to have them working on the projects, or we can deliver, on-demand services like, wireframing or user research, or, everything that is, UX UI for Web3 related. And that's Braille as an agency. And we are also trying to push the UX Bounty as a Bounty operator, meaning that we are going to be the coordinator of the Bounty.
Can you give a short summary what a bounty is for people that might not know?
Yeah, sure. Alex, you want to take it?
Yeah. So a bounty essentially is the way we are calling it in the Polkadot ecosystem, right? But the way I like to explain it to people that are outside is a budget, a specific budget that the treasury of Polkadot will define and will allow to a certain for a certain problem, right? In this case, what we call the UX bounty is that we will allocate a budget for the UX vertical, which is how do we make a better UX on Polkadot and its ecosystem. And that's very important. The word ecosystem here is that we are not going to go to every project in Polkadot trying to help them on their UX. We are going to make sure that we have the vision of Polkadot. So that means one project plus another. That's what we call an ecosystem budget. And so, yeah, the bounty is essentially allocating some money from the treasury to tackle one problem or one vertical of problem. And then this bounty, there are curators, and we might talk about curators in the podcast, but curators are the people that are the responsible for this bounty, and they are responsible to allocate a percentage of this bounty to the people, the executor. It's again another term. I'm realizing there is so many terms in crypto that we need to learn. And so the curators will essentially just take the money, give them to the executor so they can like execute really hands-on, like those are the one like doing the improvement, etc. etc. So yeah, if I would give a metaphor in like the real world, a bounty would be like a commission. Let's say Polkadot is a government.
Subsidies, and then, more subsidies then.
Yeah, subsidies. And so the government is like, okay, we have a problem there in this region, or like, I don't know, like education. We want to help the education. We will create subsidies for the education. And then there will be obviously some people that are managing those subsidies. And then the subsidies will go to individual entities that are each of them tackling a bit part of the bigger problem, and then it comes up to the government again on top.
Right. Okay. So, and you're proposing this bounty focused on user experience on Polkadot.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the idea is, if we take back the metaphor of the government, it's like the people are raising the problems to the government, saying this is all the issues that we want to tackle. So the government is making some kind of a filter to say, okay, that's all the issues that we have. That's all the issues that we have in the backlog. So backlog being, the list of all the issues. There is a filter. Then they're saying, okay, for each issue, this is the budget we are allocating to tackle. Then it goes to the executor to say, okay, guys, this is all the issues that needs to be tackled. Who wants to take it? So the executors are saying, I can take this one, I can take this one. So of course, it's not like that, right? I'm simplifying, but there is a whole process behind it. Then there is the budget allocated to that, voted by the curator, saying, okay, it's, 10K to tackle these issues. Then the executor is working on that, and it goes up to the government then afterwards to say, okay, that's what we delivered. Is it good? And then, with the group of curator and so on, they vote, they say, okay, it's good or not, and then we can move forward. It's really simplified, but it's a bit how it works.
Yeah.
Right. And what has... Sorry, Alex.
Yeah, I was going to add just to that, like, how interesting it is to see like the bounty and like the treasury in itself of Polkadot compared to other ecosystem, like to see how much advanced it is in terms of like the coordination and the added value it can bring, because you don't see that anywhere else. Like if you just look at the Ethereum Foundation, the only bits of money they are using from their treasury is only to fund some EIPs. So EIPs are like smaller improvement to the protocol of Ethereum, but it never goes into like a real objective of like how do we make, like, for example, the user experience of Ethereum better, you know. While on Polkadot, because of its architecture and because of OpenGov and like the bounty, like it really allows like numbers of use case like this one, like, hey, we are Braille, we have this expertise to help the ecosystem to get a better UX, we can leverage the bounty. And like that's totally unique, and that's why we are here in Polkadot too, is that it allows us to really help an ecosystem rather than just being on a project by project and just saying like, oh look, Uniswap on Ethereum is good, but it's not, it's only Uniswap, it's not Ethereum, you know.
And
So that's
why
very, very interesting.
that's why also we are positioning ourselves as bounty operator. Again, that's a new term, but it means that we are here to coordinate, because that's also really needed, is that having a bounty is great, but then you have to make sure that everything is like smooth in terms of process and so on. And you need someone to oversee what's happening, to make sure that, you know, people are meeting the deadlines that are agreed on, the brief is well understood, there needs to be communications, there needs to have, you know, reports and so on. So that's why we are creating this kind of role, I'd say, and it's really needed. And people sometimes think it's overkill, but on UX UI, as it's new and there's a lot of work, we are convinced that there's a need of people, you know, coordinating. And when we were in Paris, that's also what we were seeing, right? There is a need of people coordinating different efforts to bridge also project efforts, and again, to be ecosystem centric and not project centric. That's really something that we are trying to push.
Yeah, I mean, the more you decentralize, the more need for coordination, right? Otherwise, everyone's pulling into different directions.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then the user ends up like being lost, you know, like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
how many users do we know that like knows that Kusama is linked to Polkadot, and then the parachains on Kusama are linked to the parachains on Polkadot? Like not so many.
Yeah.
And that's the
It's true.
problem.
And what has the feedback been like thus far on this initiative, on this bounty that you're proposing?
So we got great feedback from the community. We actually in parallel of the bounty, we created a UX guild. So it's a group of people that are keen to engage with us and like with other stakeholders in the ecosystem to improve the UX, right? And so we are now 17 in this group. So we got like really a traction and momentum of like, yes, there is a problem of user experience. Now the question is, how do we tackle this? And so with this vision that we are providing and like a strategic organization with the bounty, we got great support. As we were saying a bit before, the support on OpenGov is right now we are like 50-50. There are some people that are they have over opinion, let's say, on how we should tackle this. Some of them are a bit skeptical on like the actual impact that it will improve. And so, but it's also why we are here too, is like it's the first time, right? And so we have to show it and prove it to those people. But it's definitely an interesting first proposal, because there are so many things that we need to tackle. And so it's understandable that people have some skeptical opinion, but we are actually responding actively to those feedback. But the goal, sorry, just to finish, the goal anyway is to, by the end of the year, really already show that Polkadot experience has improved compared to what we are proposing right now, you know.
Okay.
This and the fact that also, you know, a lot of people, which is great, by the way, are seeing the treasury as their own money. So, you know, when a proposal like that comes out with a kind of a big amount of money, they're keen to have a more detail, you know, about the spending, everything that's going to be engaged. So as it's also a first, like it's for us, it's a good exercise to say, okay, guys, is it enough for you, like in terms of granularity? No. Okay, you need more. Okay, let's work deeply on that, how we can explain the expenses and so on, because again, the idea of a bounty is like to have a part of the treasury to redistribute it to the ecosystem in a way that is benefit for it, right? So the community is really keen to see like how is it good to do that for the community and not wasting money, you know? So that's why it's really important, and that's good feedback sometimes from people that needs to understand more about the spending and understand more about, okay, but why this amount of money and why these guys or whatever, right? It's more, you know, iteration process, right? Like it's also the thing, right? Like it's a product approach.
Yeah. Iteration process. Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, in the end of the day, you'd prefer to have voters that give feedback, so you know
Definitely
what the sentiment is, what you can improve, versus voters who don't give feedback. And yeah, it's good to see that you're navigating those waters. For anyone listening that's got some dots, I'm sure Alex and Ben, you would agree, you'd be happy for them to check out your proposal and vote on it.
Number 819. Referenda 819.
819. We'll put the link in the show notes anyway.
And don't hesitate to give us any feedback as well, right? Like if you have questions or whatever, we're really keen to respond to that.
Right, that sounds good. Hey there, just a quick message. If you're watching this and you're enjoying it, please make sure to tell a friend that might also like it, because we don't run any ads on this podcast and that helps us out a lot to keep doing this. Thank you. Well, one more question before we go into some common UX UI pitfalls, and Alex, you'll give us a little showcase of it, which was basically the story behind the name Braille.
Yeah, so it was well, we are both French, as you guys could hear, and so we were trying to find a name of like, okay, what type of name do we want to use? Like we didn't want to go for like any type of like Web3 things. Like it's
Web3
a bit too
UX master.
Yeah, you know, it's
UX
not that
Web3.
It's not that smart, you know. Like we didn't want something like, okay, like, so we were like, we obviously use ChatGPT and we were like asking him like, look, find us names that are totally outside of Web3,
right,
but at the same time that can refer to what we do if you think a bit about it. Like we want to be like the smart, you know, like he wanted to be like something cool to say, and so we ended up with Braille because not only that is French, but his real mission and how he improved the life of like the people that were not able to see. He gave them access to all the books and like to the knowledge, right, of the world. And if we do a very, very thin metaphor, is that what we want to do with Braille is like open the Web3 world to the people that yet don't have access to it because they are either not curious enough, they are not savvy enough. And that's really why like we chose this name, is like, how do we make Web3 accessible, like the same as Braille made reading accessible for the non what's the name of
the blind people?
The blind people. It's like
sorry.
being blind people being Web2 people, not knowing that Web3 is existing. So how can you give them access to Web3?
Right. Yeah. It's basically it's that writing where you can go over with your finger, right? And then they can.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So basically, invented an alphabet that is giving access to the blind people to reading, and you know it's now everywhere, right? Like in terms of UX, for example, like it's like for blind people now they are able to read, but also, you know, when they are navigating, you know, in the streets, sometimes there are some, you know, explanations in Braille, or if you're going to a museum, for example, there is also Braille alphabet everywhere. So it's also why, of course, the GPT thing was something to help, but when we saw that, we were like, yeah, of course, and we were seeing documentaries of him and so on. We were like, yeah, it's kind of good. And of course, he's French as well, so we were like, okay, that's obviously that's for us.
Yeah, You guys tend to like if something is in French. I know. You prepare.
No, I mean, we were proud of it, and we were like, okay. And it's actually the story behind it again is like really what we're trying to achieve here. So it was like a perfect match, and it was a good thing for us that he was French, because when you hear us, you can tell we are French, right? So like, okay, that's a good wink to the people saying, okay, those guys are French. They are called Braille. Okay, we can understand what.
And it was not an easy process for him either. Like he faced a lot of like skepticism and all those type of stuff. And we are aware that we will face this too. Like there are many people that are against, like, not against good UX, but they are against like giving out those ethos of Web3 for better UX. And like we know that's the path for us. So that's
this, creating standards and so on there. Yeah.
That's really creative of ChatGPT. not bad. Also, but the other thing is that alphabet or that writing, that's dots, right? So I thought that's also a reference to Polkadot.
So it is, but to be honest, at the very beginning, we were thinking about that, but we were like, is it too obvious if we're saying that there's dots and then it's linked to Polkadot? So it's like, maybe people will say, like, don't say that. So we're like, yes, of course, it's also for that, but we prefer also to tell the broader story, because again, our fight is for Polkadot, but people need to understand as well, right? To not think, and that's also something like we wanted to push, right? Is that ecosystems in general tends to just see by their angle, right? Like just by the Polkadot angle and so on. So what we want to do as well is sometimes to say, okay, we saw something else happening on the other ecosystem. How can we integrate that in Polkadot, right? So that's also why in when we explain the brand as well, it's really important to of course talk about Polkadot, but for people to understand that we're doing that, for the broader Web3 in general, and for people to use Polkadot as a technology, of course, right? It's for us, it's obvious.
Right. So let's talk about that then. What's happening in other places in Web3, common UX, UI pitfalls, just to make it a bit more tangible for viewers. I don't know, Alex, did you want to share your screen, show us some stuff?
Yep, I can share my screen. So for few great and bad UX, I'm going to start with, as it was the subject, for one new things that just came up recently, like I think it was last week. It's from Coinbase Wallet. So obviously it's not part of the Polkadot ecosystem, but like that's a very good, how would I say, like a first step to really a great experience, and that definitely something we can replicate in the Polkadot ecosystem. And essentially what it is, it's a smart wallet. So it's a new type of wallet. And I'm going to show you, like, and I've tested just before. It's literally, you create a wallet in 5 seconds and everybody can do it. It's not about a passphrase anymore, and you will see. So can you guys see my screen well, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to zoom in a bit. But so if I'm just create a smart wallet, I'm getting a pop-up. Okay. Create a smart wallet. And now they are telling me, like, give the pin of your computer. So I'm on a PC, right? So I have to put a code whenever I enter my session. So I'm going to put this code. And that's it. My account is created. And so now every time I need to sign a transaction and I'm using this smart wallet, I just need to sign in the same way as I would sign in to my computer. So this is a PC, right? But if I'm doing it on my Mac, I have the Touch ID, and it's just a Touch ID. Or if you're on your iPhone, you can just do Face ID. So it's a it's for me, it's a new paradigm, right? It's like, that's a Web2 experience that everybody is now accustomed to it. Like they know how to do it. They have this habit. It's not about a passphrase anymore. And so that's a very big milestone to me for like a better UX. And we know that some team in the ecosystem are already working on that.
Cool.
That will be very exciting, like to onboard the next the next wave of user, because that's an experience that your parents can do, your Web2 friends can do. Like it's not impossible for them.
Yeah. So instead of like downloading the browser extension wallet XYZ, and then setting it up and saving the private key and all that. Basically, you showed us that's all you did, and it created a new wallet, right, for you. Or you can you also log in to an existing one then once you've done this once? Or?
I think you can. So I didn't explore fully the thing, but my understanding is like your wallet is linked to your PC and your browser. So that means like I might not be able to link it back to another desktop or another iPhone. I will need to check. I don't want to say any any wrong thing, but yeah, that's a very interesting experience. Obviously, that's the beginning of it. For example, the passphrase. Are you do you have the custody of your passkey? Yes, but is it as clean and as secure as a passphrase? This I don't know, but that's, as I was saying earlier, is like finding the compromise between the most secure thing to the most usable experience too.
And and again, that's also, edge cases that needs to be, think at the beginning. But first, we relate also the fact that they're launching something or someone is launching something, and then they iterate as they go, right? So, for example, if it's not available, the fact that, you're having this on your desktop or Mac or whatever, and you can't transfer this to another device, well, that's an edge case, right? So how can you tackle that? So it could be interesting as well to explore that, and if it's not, why it's not possible, and how can you, really as a product approach, and that's really important as well for people to keep in mind, right? It's really important to launch things, to iterate as also the user is using it. So
that's so congrats to Coinbase. Definitely that's a big milestone for the UX in Web3 in general. Another example I wanted to give on like this one is more like, okay, what is a good UX, if we can call it like that, to a bad UX? And so we have a great example in Polkadot ecosystem. It's about the address of your wallet, right? So when you are on MetaMask or I don't know, Rabbi wallet or other EVM wallet. So an EVM is Ethereum virtual machine. So it's essentially whenever you see like Arbitrum, Optimism, even Avalanche, they have EVM address, which is like it always starts with a 0 and X, right? Well, when you have your MetaMask, you have the same address on all of the chain that are EVM. So that means right now I'm on Avalanche, my address is this one, and if I'm going on Arbitrum, it's the same exact address. So that's what we call a standard address or unified address format, right? And that is not the case yet on Polkadot. So if you see right now my Talisman wallet, so that's my wallet on Polkadot, right? I have a substrate generic address, so it's a 5G something. Then I have an address on Hydration that is a parachain in Polkadot. And even my address on Polka is a different one than this one. So that creates a lot of friction for the user, because you're like, is the same address? Am I like, can I send the same funds and stuff? And that's a typical improvement that or what we call a low hanging fruit for Polkadot to just catch up on the normalized UX that we can see beyond Polkadot in all of the other ecosystem, to just have one unified address. And we know it's possible. We just have to tackle it. We just need people to start doing it.
Is it really low-hanging fruit? Like, I just wonder, like, why does that exist in the first place then? Because obviously it is more complicated. I thought maybe there was a great technological reason for it, but
So I don't have the full detail on like the technical things why it was chosen like this, but we know that there have been already some discussion in the forums of like the technical fellowship, saying that yes, that could be done. Like we could have only one address. I don't remember why was the reason.
That's also something that we are we're having in our backlog of UX issues that needs to be tackled by the bounty.
Okay.
So
So this is something you want to tackle as well.
yeah.
For example, the UX bounty, if you ask yourself like, okay, what will it bring? For example, it will bring a generic address for the Polkadot ecosystem. So there is no more question of like which address should I use, you know?
So you'll try and push that topic then with the core developers and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Basically, we need to frame the whole journey to get there. This is where, as well, we forgot to mention that, but in the UX Guild, we don't have only designers, right? Like we have core developers, we have Web3 developers in general, we have Web2 developers, we have copywriters. So we have a lot of bunch of expertises. So yeah, the idea is to scope the full journey to get there, and who can tackle, each step. So yeah.
Right. Quick question: Is Kian in that guild as well from Parity? Because we had him on the show, and he was really interested in UX.
I don't think he joined. Topics. I don't know. We need to check. I know we have Joe in it, but maybe Sean as well. We maybe join, but I don't know if Kian is there.
No, I don't know either.
You should chat to him because he really emphasized how he wants to be more involved in UX things.
That's a great point then. Yes, I will reach out to him,
Yeah.
I think he did because he's in the Open UX call, which is a monthly call that we are hosting.
Okay, so maybe he's already in it. Yeah.
So I think he joined the UX Guild.
Yeah, because we had a kind of a peak of people joining as well. So it was like we went from 20 people to 50, something like that really quickly. So yeah.
Well, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, that's great.
Anything else, Alex?
Yeah, I just wanted, and that's not. It's more like how can we improve and start, thinking about how do we make better experiences. And I like to give this example as well. That is from Binance. It's a GIF. I don't know if it will be very. It's not pixelized, but it's what we call a walkthrough. And so that's something that you see in most of the app, when you first enter, and it's like walkthrough of like this button is for this, this element is to do this. This is things that we should include in most of the dApps, because again, we need to assume the user are new and they don't know all of the jargon, they don't know all of the features, and that's a very good implementation for at least remove some of the questions that the user might have. It's not going to resolve everything, but it's already a good start, So that was just wanted to show that so people can.
And to add to that as well is that you briefly touched about the jargon, so the copy, and that's also something that we want to tackle through the UX issues, is that in Polkadot as well, we have a lot of different naming for things. And the idea is that how can we, when you're using XCM, so sometimes it's like cross-chain, sometimes I forgot all the different names, teleport,
teleport.
So there are all different namings for things, and I know that it's really confusing for users. So how can you make sure that, there you go. So transfer, crunch-shade, cross-in, cross-out.
Oh yeah, I saw those. And I gotta be honest, it even confuses me. I saw that as well, that Bifrost said cross in, cross out, but I just knew XCM and cross chain. And I'll be honest, like you said, like some of these user interfaces that I've come across, they confused me to the point that I didn't want to use them. And I would say I'm much more advanced than a beginner, and just because they assume so much knowledge on the user's part, not just about crypto or staking or whatever it is that the application is doing, but also about the interface itself. Because like you said, they're all different in a way, right? I think you made the example of liquid staking derivatives and all these different providers, and each interface is different. So how can you even assume that the user knows how to use yours? It's not like a decentralized exchange where the swap interface at this stage is somewhat standardized and the same, right?
So it's
we can't blame like each team, because they are innovating at a pace that is just like restless, right? And that's why we are positioning ourselves as like look guys, you just focus on your thing, like innovating, pushing new features. We will focus on make sure that what we Polkadot as an ecosystem offer is unified and easy for the user to understand, because this example is just not possible. We have one of the two main parachain using two different terms for the same feature. Like it shouldn't be the case. Like it's like it's saying like you are in a country driving, and then you from one village to another there are different signs, you know, and you're like 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 I shouldn't be like taking my notebook. Okay, what is this sign? You know, what does it mean?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's like it needs to be easy for the user.
Sometimes the
Yeah,
answer is that they can read the documentation. That's mostly the answer that we get sometimes. And it's like, okay, but do I need to read my documentation every time I want to do a transfer on my bank account? No, you know, so it's like the exact same thing. And again, like it's also a part of the culture that needs to change. And this is where as well, like we want to be here to move that out, because as Alex said, they are really focused on as well on how can we innovate and push new things, because also for Polkadot, right? Like with all the new features that are coming to Polkadot, like the parachains and the dApps in general needs to adapt really fast. So they don't take the time to think about, okay, how can this feature, you know, can impact, you know, the user experience in general and so on. They just develop and push forward and then see how it goes, right? So that's why we want to be here to anticipate and help them, you know, remove that from their head and to say, okay, that's good. You know, the UX Guild and the UX Bounty are already tackling that. So I'm just going to take, you know, because the idea also as the UX Bounty is to create a kind of a library to, you know, put everything in there and to centralize. I know, sorry for this word, but to put everything in one place for people to say, okay, that's all the good practices that has been tackled that I can just copy paste or take to implement directly in my dApps.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but there's also loads of low hanging fruit, right? Just like user interface stuff, just to make it more intuitive, and perhaps even like the user journeys or like the walkthroughs you mentioned here. Just so like I want to do liquid staking now. Like this is the thing I want to do. Just that the website somehow gives me the information quickly how I can do that without all the other stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Was there something else you wanted to show us, Ben?
I can't, but I can. Sorry, but I think a lot of people will smile when they see that.
That's good.
But of course, our good old Polkadot.js.
Oh.
I don't want to talk much about that, to be honest, because I know it's a big pain point. When I joined the ecosystem, it was already a pain point. I know.
First, Ben, can you nonetheless give us an intro? Even some people might not know what they're seeing.
Okay, Polkadot.js is basically the wallet that has been developed by Parity, and I think it's one of the oldest wallet on Polkadot. And as you can see, it's not really user friendly. Like it's a lot of, I'd say it's for developers. And actually, I know that for now, Polkadot.js is being, you know, not branded, but being pushed more as you are a developer, you can use Polkadot.js because it's more like it's friendly enough for developers that want to develop on Polkadot and, you know, do their stuff, test things and so on. But as an end user, and that's what we're talking about since the beginning of this show, right? Like it's, as an end user, you come here. So here I'm on the stacking tab. Okay, where do I stake? Like it's impossible for me to understand how do I need to stake, or I need to go through all the documentation or see tutorials on YouTube and so on. So that's why I don't want to spend too much time on this topic. I just wanted to, because I know it's a big topic. It has been a big topic, and it still is.
Talked about,
and I know a lot of people. I don't remember the numbers because I know they are evolving really fast. But I know the Polkadot.js was one of the wallets the most used in the ecosystem, and I know it's starting to change slowly, but because every people that was entering the ecosystem was using this wallet because it was ranking at the top and so on in Google. So that's why also, right, like it's that's why also user experience, and that's why I'm showing that as well, is like user experience is not only the product, but it's like the overall experience as an ecosystem. And that's why I wanted to show Polkadot.js, is that when you are a new user and you come, as your first experience in the ecosystem, and you come here, it's like, if you are a developer, you are the target, so you're gonna find your way here, you will be able to use it, and that's good. But as an end user, it will be really complicating with a lot of words, right? Like slashes, all that kind of words that can scare people. That's like, okay, what slashes? What is, all this stuff, right? So that's why it's really important, because user experience and UX, so UX UI is when you are on the product, but in our case, it's for Polkadot as an ecosystem again, right? So when you're a new user, your first experience is that's what they're gonna keep as an experience as Polkadot, right? So
I mean, you still have people saying talking about Polkadot.js from a few years ago, like that left the ecosystem because of it,
Yeah. So like, that, which is, again, we can't blame them. And again, maybe it's a branding error of Polkadot.js. Maybe from the beginning we should have said that this is the wallet for developers and make it clear from the beginning. But again, right, like we can iterate on them and we can say, okay, now Polkadot.js, we need to push. That's what is being done, right? Like right now we are trying to push a lot of wallet from the ecosystem, because they are more end user friendly, and for people to forget about Polkadot.js in general, and saying, okay, that's not a wallet for me. I should go to subwallet Talisman or Nova, for example, instead.
Right. Yeah, great point. Just this one. I think it is a very good tool for developers, like you said, but it was presented from the start towards end users, and I think many of them have been put off then as a result, like you said. If the first experience is a hard one, like I remember it for me, it was impossible to wrap your head around, but I really wanted to use Polkadot. That's the only reason I kept going, so and trying, then you lose a lot of people.
We are looping back with our intro, right, and saying what are the pain points. And this is where as well Polkadot is really seen as a tech-centric community and ecosystem, because for example, as a user, you come here, you directly understand that it's really techy and maybe not end user centric, where we all know it's not true, right? Like we have great products we have great wallets, great products. We just need to make sure that people understand that. And for example, this is true, right? Like it's a sentiment about Polkadot. Everyone knows that sometimes people are saying it's too complicated, like Polkadot is too complicated as an ecosystem, right? So how can we change this feeling, right?
Yeah, no, Talisman is great, for example. I mean, I use that as my main wallet, like instead of MetaMask and stuff. So, and I believe it started as simply a Polkadot focused wallet. So, that's great to see. So, I mean, maybe to wrap it all up, what are your hopes for UX and UI on Polkadot in the future? And what are your like short to midterm goals with Braille or with the bounty to kind of contribute to that future?
So really the short-term goal right now is to focus on the low-hanging fruits problems that we've seen, and some of them I showed you guys, and it's really about catching up on like what Web3 is offering already, like unified address, maybe the smart wallet that Coinbase offers is like catching up on those experiences, which is already a good start. And then mid long term, the goals are really to, now that we have a good experience, or at least an experience that is comparable to the other ecosystem, how do we leverage the Polkadot SDK that is one of the strongest one and powerful one in the blockchain space? How do we leverage its unique feature to make like really unique experiences, right? Because we are at the very beginning of Web3 UX. Like we are only seeing the tip of the iceberg, right? But in few years, people will use app on blockchain on Polkadot without knowing that they are using it. And the question is like, how do we leverage this? How do we make sure that people are actually enjoying using those products? So that's really the mid long term. And I don't have the answer yet because we are not there yet. But one maybe direction that we will go forward for sure, and that people have seen it, have heard of, is account abstraction. So for the people that don't know what is account abstraction, is essentially abstracting away the blockchain, and so you don't see that you are using the blockchain. Like that means you don't have an address, you don't have gas fees. It's like you use an app on your phone, and you are not using a wallet, right? And so those are features or improvement that we are going to see in the future, but we are not there yet. We are not mature enough yet to really build full product on the account abstraction with abstraction.
Ben,
And on a more Braille centric, I'd say, we just hope that the bounty goes through, and we are really keen to help the ecosystem, because again, maybe we didn't say that a lot, but one of our goal with Braille would be to be a common good agency, so that we really want to use the decentralized funding mechanism to, also, because really like that, like we could be, a classic agency, just, invoicing products and so on, and just saying, okay, guys, we can do that, and you can pay us. But we really want also to experiment this new way of getting funded, and to also, be really position ourselves as common good. So that's the goal. And UX Bounty would be one of the first milestone for us, one of the biggest one. And we are really looking forward to it. And
that's awesome. Wish you all the best for that. So do you think Polkadot can rival those experiences you presented with Coinbase and Base?
For sure. Like that's that's the beauty of Polkadot SDK, right? Is like it's super flexible. It's just like we need people to tackle this down, but for sure. And I will even say that it will be better. Like the limitation from Polkadot SDK are much less than any other SDK. So
this will help also what I was saying earlier, to change the feeling about Polkadot, right? Polkadot is too complicated. We want to reverse that. And when I said we, not Braille and some, but everyone within the ecosystem, we can feel that. We know that we want to change this feeling, and we are moving slowly to this shift, I'd say. But there is still a long way, because there is this legacy image from people on us, and Web3 is really fast, so we need to keep up. But we are convinced that we're gonna make it for sure.
Awesome, big topic to tackle. Happy to see you guys are doing it. I'll be on the lookout for any thing that you're working on coming to fruition. Thank you for coming on the show. Anyone watching, links are in the show notes. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having us.